Welcome to another analysis video. And Adam, it's just kind of a somewhat lazy mid-April week in the off season, but in our little world, it's been a pretty big week. We had our first ever interviews with Shroud Clayton and Brendan Lewis. First time we've talked to Makai Blackman in over a year. And then there was that whole little CSU thing, which doesn't really come into play for another 8 years, yet last I checked has almost 200 comments and 6,000 views on your message board. So, there's a little something going on this week.
Even the people that hate that game get very loud about it, right? So I can't remember the last news story that came out involving CU that drew as much comments on both sides of it. And my Twitter notifications were a little out of control once that announcement went down. I don't know what yours was looking like. Look, I get it. Some people just hate this game, and they're never going to change their stance on this. But this is kind of a good middle ground with this series. If you're going to assume that they're going to continue to play CSU periodically, it's back to campus. The atmosphere in Denver had gotten stale for many years before they took a break from this series. So it's back on campus, which is great. And then it's 2 on, 2 off. And I think – what is it? They play 6 times in the next 18 years.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, 8 times in the next 18 years.
18, yep. So,
look, there's going to be enough breaks in there. They've been creative with their scheduling. They're going to have some fun matchups. I know I'm kind of in the minority at times, and I don't want this rivalry to die because CU doesn't have a rival in the Pac-12 right now. And you see the animosity that just the fact that this game got scheduled brings out of people. I like that. That's good. The in-state trash talk. I know CU fans are never going to fully embrace CSU as a rival, but even from a little brother standpoint, it's fun. It creates good chatter, and it's something that CU's lacking right now.
Well, you said sometimes people that hate the game are the loudest. I think they are the loudest, the people that hate the game. So, look, it is a rivalry. Those that want to say it's not, it is. I'm sorry. It's not Auburn, Alabama, or even CU, Nebraska. But currently, look at CU's schedule. Who brings this type of energy, in an off season? You schedule Houston. When they announced a Houston home and home several years ago. Oh yeah, that's cool. A Missouri home and home. Yeah, that's kind of cool. 5th down, all that. That's kind of cool. But it's this game that, I'm sorry, if people don't like it. I don't understand, Adam, when people say this is a no-win situation for CU because they're expected to win. So they don't want CU to schedule games they're expected to win. I mean, you're expected to beat North Dakota State and UNC and Colgate and teams like that as well. I mean. And frankly, there's very few non-conference games against like a group of 5 type of team that's going to fill Folsom Field. And this one's going to fill Folsom Field or come close to it. So financially, it makes sense. It makes sense for the attention that CU and CSU are going to get in state. You look at it, how often has Denver media talked about CU since the Alamo Bowl? Not at all. They announced this, and it's all over Denver. So, they fight for attention in Denver, and so it's not a lose-lose situation. It's only painful for CU fans if they lose this game and they have to hear from the annoying Ram fans for a year. I get that, but hey, you've won 5 in a row. You just go out and beat them.
Yes, win the game. That's not an issue. They have 67 wins all time against CSU. You can't say that they've never benefited from this matchup ever. Yeah, and if CSU plays like it's their Super Bowl, we kind of hear that's, been the case in the past, then that's good. It gets you ready. I agree with you. And the other take from people that don't like this game is that you shouldn't do a home and home with a group of 5. As you've pointed out, it's actually more common than most people think.
Yeah, it's pretty common. And, there's Power 5 teams all over the country that are doing it. And, looking at like Iowa State, they've got them with – doing it with Colorado State makes sense. You look at Iowa State, they've got a home and home with Arkansas State. Doesn't make any sense. Why would Iowa State go down to Arkansas State? But it happens all the time, and it makes sense. And so anyway, that's that. We have they don't play the Rams for another 2 years, and this new deal doesn't kick in until 2029. So that's the funny thing about this, Adam, is I always love seeing games that are scheduled in 2038. When there's literally kids that are in diapers right now that will be playing in that game in 2038. So and you and I were joking.
Hopefully, we're not in diapers then, right?
there's guys that are currently covering the team that might be in diapers at that point. So a different type of diaper. But I was joking with you this week that I remember when the Georgia Tech series. I don't even remember when that is. 2025, I think. When that was announced, and Mike McIntyre was the coach, and it was, oh, how do you feel about possibly playing your alma mater? He's not even going to be the coach. So, none of the main players at CU, not even players. I'm talking about Rick George, Carl Durrell. They're probably not going to be here when those games happen. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that over the years. We should move on, and let's talk about some of these current guys because, Adam, it was a fun week. I mean, I thought one of the best interviews we've had in a long time happened on Monday. Ashad Clayton, and this is a guy that, holy cow, has that guy been talked about a lot by the fan base. From a guy that we haven't heard from at all. All we know of him is sort of the cryptic tweets and, what we perceived as sort of pouting a little bit during the season. And frankly, he was perceived as pouting when he opted out of the bowl game. And, I think this week was a classic example of don't jump to conclusions. When you hear Carl Durrell talk about, hey, there were so many family dynamics going on there, and his mom comes up for the Utah game and is panicked because of how Boulder is and wants her son home. You take that into consideration, like, okay, that makes sense. There's a little heat off of Ashad at that point. So I thought Ashad was a lot more insightful than I expected him to be. Not that I thought he wasn't going to be, but I've never talked to him. And I thought it was a great week, a great experience hearing from Ashad and hearing Carl talk about Ashad's experience from last year.
Yeah, he came off really well in that. Most of our player interviews are 5 to 7 minutes. I think he went for almost 11 minutes. And it was good to get that color on the situation because we didn't know the full story until he and Coach Durrell both explained what was going on there. I know you grew up here in Colorado, Brian, but I moved out from Phoenix, and you get that homesickness period for a little bit. I went back home for a couple months during the dead time of year, and I couldn't wait to get back here. Sometimes you just kind of need that little break to kind of reset and go, you know what, no, Colorado is my home now. And so he said that he does feel like it's a second home for him now, and it's been tough. I know back in the day, CU had a lot of really good players come out of Louisiana, Cordell Stewart, Vance Joseph, Shannon Clavel. Eric Bieniemy was originally from New Orleans. They had success there, but you look back here recently, they've really had a hard time with those Louisiana kids coming out. Over the course of the last 17 years, there's been 5 guys, I think, 5 players that have signed with CU from Louisiana. None of those guys has exhausted their eligibility, so they've all transferred out at some point. A guy like Karan Bayham was around for like 2 weeks before he went back. So the fact that Ashad has been able to get over that initial homesickness, and it sounds like, based on what he was telling us, that he plans to be here for the long haul. And so hopefully he can be that first Louisiana guy in a really long time to exhaust his eligibility. A lot of talent. We saw him taking the second most snaps last Friday. And so I think he's going to have a big role in the team. We've talked about it. Jarek Broussard, you're not going to run him as much as you did last year. So you're going to need that depth there. And Jared Mangum's body language bothered me, but Ashad, I didn't really hear anything aside from just those cryptic tweets. I think it really was just he missed his mom and grandmother, and it was a tough year for everybody. Even in a normal year, it would have been hard for him to come all this way out here. And there is a bit of a culture shock you hear from people. I've never been to New Orleans, but you just hear it's just such a different culture than what you experience in Boulder.
Yeah, and I don't think this guy was on your list. I think you're talking about high school recruits, but like Delrick Abrams, was from Louisiana, but went JUCO.
That's true.
He finished his eligibility here, but wasn't here as long. And
but he had that humbling experience at JUCO before he got here.
He had that growing up experience before he got here. So, but yeah, it is very different down there. And you're right. I mean, it would have been different. It's clear that Ashad's an emotional young man, and that's not necessarily a bad thing at all. I mean, He sort of throws some of his emotions out on Twitter in a cryptic way. But, we heard it a little bit in this interview, and I've seen some of the comments from people that, wow, I mean, Ashad's now my favorite player. He gained a lot of fans this week, by his demeanor and, just by how he talked. And I thought it was genuine. I really liked him. I thought he came across really well. I hope he does well because, he's super talented, and it sounds like, he's really bonded with Jarek Broussard and with Darian Hagan. And that's maybe more important than bonding with Broussard is bonding with Hagan because that's your position coach. But I liked the shot. I thought he came across really well. And, I think, Adam, that running back room has the potential to be really good.
Yeah. And, things are opening up. It's getting closer to normal. So, you want those true freshmen to stay out of trouble. But, they'll get a little bit more of that true college experience this coming year. That it had to be tough to coming out here and having to kind of hang out in your hotel or your apartment all the time. I think this coming year it'll be a little bit easier for those guys because there won't be quite the restrictions they had.
Yeah, and Ashad also mentioned missing crawfish. All he needs to do is get with Coach Rodrigue, who appears to, cook some crawfish up every now and then. I went to New Orleans several years ago. The crawfish were okay, but I think if you're from there, maybe that crawfish boil is a sense of home. But yeah, I think there's people in place around here that can help Ashad and frankly help all those out-of-state players, feel at home. I think CU's been a welcoming place to a lot of people. So it's nice to see Ashad, kind of, acclimate a little bit. And another guy, Adam, that, told us he felt that same thing a little bit last year was Brendan Lewis, and we had a chance to talk to him. It was our first time talking to him since he got to CU. What were your impressions of his interview on Wednesday?
Yeah, and he was an early enrollee, so he was out here longer, and he came out early to play in spring ball and didn't get that opportunity. So it makes sense why he would be itching to go back home. But yeah, no, I came away impressed there. Obviously, the key word there has just been confidence that he's really built as he learned the system throughout the practices last season. Even admits, hey, I wasn't ready until the end of the year. And when he was ready, he got that opportunity, looked really good. Anxious to see on Friday, a larger sample size with Brendan Lewis because it was really quick this past Friday. He didn't get a lot of snaps. The quarterbacks just didn't look that good. So anxious to see a little bit more of him tomorrow.
Yeah, and it'll also be, as we talked about last week, it'll still be tough to judge, Brendan and JT Shroud and those quarterbacks off of what we see even this Friday or even in the spring game when we know that there's a lot of, key linemen that are out. And, Brendan Rice has not been practicing so far, as he recovers from a finger and also sound like he was in COVID protocol. So they're missing some key guys. It's not the same team, but I am anxious to see what he looks like on Friday. It's amazing. Everybody talks about how different he is from the fall, and that's really not that long ago, but it's amazing, what that experience can do for a young man and just getting in the game. And he said as soon as he threw his first throw, he was like, okay, this is sort of like high school. And obviously playing against the Texas Longhorns is not like playing the competition in Melissa, Texas. But I think for him, it was just that feel of, all right, I'm in a game now. I know what I'm doing here. And it was a little bit comfortable for him. It's good to see that confidence because I think that quarterback room is another one, Adam, that I think can be pretty solid.
Yeah, and I'm curious to get your thoughts here. Obviously, we're a long ways away from CU naming a starting quarterback. One of the guys in the mix that's going to be in the mix isn't even out there this spring, Sam Neuer. Do you think that Brendan Lewis has the edge at this point just based on what he did in the Alamo Bowl, or do you really think this is going to come down to the wire kind of like it did last year?
I think it's going to come down to the wire, but if I had to project a starter right now, I'd still go with Brendan Lewis. I think that, Sam was up and down last year, and, I think I can speak for you and say I really like Sam. I think his story was great. I love to see him get be the starter last year. It'd be great to see him be the starter this year and have a successful season and, maybe get a chance at the NFL. But he was up and down last year. And, Brendan came in, played really well in that Alamo Bowl. And, frankly, Brendan's more of the future of this program than Sam is. And if it's close, I think you almost got to go with Brendan in that regard. I like the potential. I think that he has certainly an advantage being here in spring with Sam being out.
He just seems to have the it factor, Brennan, right?
Yeah.
It just you watch the way he moves around and carries himself, and just even in the Alamo Bowl, a couple of his passes were not on a rope. They were kind of, especially the long one was kind of hung up there, but it got the job done, and obviously he's got that knack with his athleticism. And we've heard Grant Cicerone, a walk-on that was running with the third stringers last Friday, might even be a potential fourth guy that Langsdorff would feel comfortable putting out there, which would be good because then you wouldn't necessarily feel, even though you don't have a ton of scholarship quarterbacks, like you have to bring in a transfer at the position this summer.
Yeah, I think that's been a real key. If a guy like Grant can give the coaches confidence that, hey, if we need to put him in a game, we'll be all right. You don't necessarily have to go and get that other quarterback. And so I think that's big for as they look to build the roster for this year. I imagine they're still going to try to add a couple spots. Maybe that's one that the way Grant's playing, you say, okay, we can get by without that spot there. And then the other one, of course, is JT Shroud, who with the new transfer rule passing is now officially eligible for this next season. He's sort of been on that reserve not eligible list, but now he can officially be eligible. That's big for the Buffs. And this is a guy that outside of Sam Neuer is the most experienced quarterback on the roster, and it sounds like he's played really well. What are kind of your thoughts as we talked to Daniel Langsdorff yesterday and he talked about JT Shroud?
Well, most of what I've taken in terms of impressions of JT Shroud is from the folks out at Tennessee because obviously he was there for 3 years. He played in 8 games, had a start. It's pretty unanimous that, this kid has really, really good arm talent. And he looks the part. Yeah, you can see that walking into Friday's practice. He's well put together. The decision-making has been the concern there. As a senior in high school, he threw a ton of picks. And then he was getting pulled by making bad decisions there in some of those games at Tennessee. But, he's a young developing quarterback. If he can kind of fix that. Langsdorff said he liked what he's seen from a decision-making standpoint, said that he did a really good job leading them in the 2-minute drill, threw a nice touchdown pass on Wednesday. So that's encouraging. We haven't seen it with our own eyes yet. Very brief sample size last Friday. So definitely anxious to watch him tomorrow.
Yeah, and going back to your question about starting quarterback, I think if CU comes out of this spring feeling really good about JT and Brendan as potential starters, and then you add Sam to the mix, I think it's going to be a really fun and good situation for CU going into the fall. And whoever wins that competition, I think is going to be deserving of it.
Yeah. Yep.
The other one, Makai Blackman, we haven't talked to him, in a long time. We finally got a chance to talk to him. I thought he was underrated last year, Adam. I mean, the fact that he got 0 all-conference recognition from the coaches, was the 3rd-rated cornerback by Pro Football Focus. I thought he played really well last year, and sounds like he's got some confidence. He's playing a little bit in the nickel this spring, but it sounds like Makai is kind of picking up a little bit where he left off. And I know he's had a finger injury, but he's got some confidence. He's becoming a leader. Yeah,
he's always had that confidence.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I would say if you're going to say most underrated player on the team last year, he might be the guy there. He was doing such a good job.
Carson Wells.
Carson Wells, yeah, that was crazy that he didn't get first-team all-conference consideration. But, it was very solid. I guess he just didn't have a ton of picks. Maybe that's why he got a little bit overlooked. Yeah. But, he was really solid throughout the year. Nigel Bethel is a guy that we heard Demetrius Martin say, hey, I'm not putting him as a backup in Penn yet. This is a guy that still has a chance to compete for that starting job. Apparently, he had a couple of interceptions on Wednesday. Even Tyron Taylor, the early enrollee at cornerback, it sounds like he's got a promising future. I can't imagine he's going to have much of a role this year, but obviously it helps him getting on campus for these 15 spring practices. Even DJ Oats, that's a name we have not heard anybody talk about since he got on campus. He came in really inexperienced as a football player, a lot of speed, maybe one of the fastest guys on the team. It sounds like he's going to at least be a contributor on special teams, so it's good to see that he's kind of in the mix as well. Obviously, he's not going to be a starting cornerback this year, but a guy that will at least have a role on the team this year.
Yeah, and Coach Martin said that the move to the nickel is not really necessarily permanent for Makai. But what are your thoughts on that? Are the Buffs better if Makai's playing in the nickel, and that means somebody else like Nigel Bethel has stepped up into a starting type of role? Yeah,
is Chris Miller going to be healthy, I guess is the question there. they were really excited about what he was going to be able to do as a star back last year, and once again was not able to stay healthy. He's on the injured list this spring again. So, yeah, if Chris Miller can't stay out there and stay healthy, you want to try to get your best defensive backs on the field. And if Nigel it sounds like he's been a magnet to the football. If moving Makai to the nickel gets your best three corners out there, your best 5 defensive backs overall, then yeah, I would be all for that.
Yeah, I think when healthy, Chris Miller is one of their 5 best. But at this point, I think it's hard to count on him. You hope he's healthy, but I don't think you can pencil him in anywhere. And he would probably be a safety if he does play, a safety or star. But he's one of those things that it's almost a luxury if he is healthy, right? And you hope he is. He's such a good kid, but he's been so snake bitten. But I don't think you can count on him at this point. And just hope he's ready. What other thoughts did you have this week? I'm trying to think who else we talked to. Is that all we talked to this week?
Well, we got a little bit of an insight into the tight end competition.
That's right.
I asked
yeah.
Carl Jarrell, have you ever had 12 tight ends competing at the same time? And he kind of laughed, and he made it clear there's not going to have 12 tight ends when they start camp. So it'll be interesting to see how that works itself out. Brady Russell, obviously, he's your number 1 guy there. He's been able to do some teamwork stuff this week for the first time. Jarrell also mentioned Matt Lynch, Alec Pell, Caleb Fourier, and Eric Olson. So I think those are probably your best bets for the top 5. CJ Szymanski actually seemed to do some good things last year. So it'll be interesting to see how that works itself out. But, yeah, they're not going to have 12 guys at tight end when camp gets going.
Yeah, how would that make you feel if you're a tight end right now? I mean, I thought that was an interesting thing for Carl to say in the middle of spring ball. You got 12 tight ends out there competing, and now they know that, hey, some of us aren't going to be here. And you've almost got to look at that walk-on group and say there's going to be some movement there. I mean, Nico Magri was a defensive lineman last year. Does he go back? And I think that's more of where Carl Durrell is saying we're allowed to have 120 players. We can't have 1/10 of them be a tight end. So
exactly.
Does Nico Magri move back to defensive line? Does Nick Fisher? Does he stay? Does he? Have a role on this team. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, with that tight end group. But I thought it was interesting that he would say we're not going to have 12.
He's being honest, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
It's
right.
There's going to be player movement after spring ball, both going out and coming in, and that's a spot that just is log jammed right now. So you're going to have to make some changes there. I don't like to get into speculation until these guys actually enter the portal, but there's a couple names on there you can look at and go, okay, that's probably a high likelihood that he moves on after this spring. So it will be interesting to see the movement there. But we're going to get you to experience the dark horse for the first time tomorrow.
I know.
You excited about that?
I am. Yeah. And there's probably some watching this saying, can't believe I haven't been there yet, but have not been to the dark horse. I don't live in Boulder, so I don't eat a lot in Boulder. So there's probably a lot of those spots that people love and, are traditional favorites that I haven't been to. So you're going to introduce me to a dark horse Jiffy Burger. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So looking forward to that. I'm not sure if I'm looking
more. It's a pretty polarizing burger, but I would say that the thought of peanut butter and bacon on a burger, doesn't make me want to go out of my way to get it. But then the first time you try it, it's it's a guilty pleasure a couple times a year.
Yeah, I did have years ago. I had the Goober Burger at the Cherry Cricket, which is peanut butter and fried egg. Okay. So I thought I like kind of the combination of peanut butter on the burger. So we'll see. We'll have a review of that in our next video. Certainly we'll talk about the scrimmage, but I'm not sure what I'm looking more forward to: the Jiffy Burger or seeing the open scrimmage.
Yeah, it's been what is it now? 13 months since we shared a meal together.
Yeah. And the last time we did, everything shut down the next day. So let's hope that doesn't happen this time. Right, let's hope for better results this time. But Adam and I will be back this weekend to talk about the Jiffy Burger and the latest scrimmage.